Imagine this: EU28, staring at your laptop at 2 a.m., another half-finished course open in one tab, a sketchbook in another, and a notebook full of half-baked business ideas in a third. Everyone around you seems to have it figured out: one clear path, one title, one expertise. Just pick something, they say. Commit. And yet every time you try, something inside you whispers, but what about this other thing? The guilt creeps in. You feel scattered, undisciplined, maybe even broken. That quiet ache? It's not a flaw. It's the first clue that your mind was never built for the narrow lane the world keeps telling you to stay in. What if the very thing that makes you feel off track is actually how you're wired to win in the world that's coming? Not despite your many interests, but because of them. Let's sit with that for a second. Close your eyes and picture your brain not as a muscle you're failing to train, but as a living instrument. Some brains are like high-precision microscopes, brilliant at zooming into one tiny corner of reality until every detail is crystal clear. That's the specialist. Powerful. Respected. Necessary. But your brain? It feels more like a wide-angle lens on a camera that refuses to narrow down. It keeps pulling back, noticing how one field bleeds into another, how a metaphor from poetry suddenly solves a problem in code, how a walk in the forest reframes a leadership dilemma. Neuroscience gives this a name. Researchers at Harvard and the University of Toronto found that highly creative people, those who achieve across domains, often show something called decreased latent inhibition. Latent inhibition is your brain's polite bouncer. It filters out irrelevant stimuli so you can focus. Lower latent inhibition means the bouncer is a little more relaxed. More signals get through. More raw material for new connections. That's not distraction. That's the biological signature of a mind built for synthesis. And then there's dopamine. Not the cheap pleasure chemical pop science sold us, but the molecule of anticipation and exploration. When your brain lights up at novelty, when it says, let's learn just enough about this new thing to see how it dances with everything else, dopamine surges. It rewards the hunt across fields the same way it rewards a specialist drilling deeper into one. Your reward system isn't broken, it's calibrated for range. Think of your mind like an old-fashioned library with no sections. The specialist builds one perfectly organized shelf and masters every book on it. You keep wandering the aisles, pulling volumes from philosophy, biology, art, technology, and quietly noticing how they talk to each other when no one else is listening. That crosstalk is where real insight lives. Studies of Nobel laureates show they are disproportionately polymathic, far more likely to have serious pursuits in the arts, music, or unrelated sciences. Their brains had practiced making unexpected bridges long before the big discovery arrived. Now zoom out further, back through time. For most of human history, being a generalist wasn't a personality quirk, it was survival. Our ancestors weren't locked into single niches. They were generalist specialists, as one elegant study called it, able to adapt to deserts, ice, forests, coasts, and then, within each new environment, develop deep local expertise fast. The hunter who could also read the stars, the gatherer who understood plants and basic wound care, the storyteller who remembered migration routes, these were the ones who lived when the climate shifted or the megafauna vanished. Specialization works beautifully in stable, predictable worlds. Evolution favored flexibility when the world kept rewriting the rules. Fast forward to now. The modern world spent 2 centuries training us to be excellent cogs. The Industrial Revolution, the rise of the university major, the corporate ladder, all of it rewarded the specialist. Deep work, as Cal Newport calls it, became sacred. And for a while it worked. But something fundamental has changed. The World Economic Forum tells us that 44% of core skills in any profession will be obsolete within 5 years. AI is already swallowing narrow, repeatable expertise. The problems that matter most, climate, health, technology ethics, meaning itself, are wicked, interconnected, and refuse to stay inside one department. Suddenly the specialist's microscope feels a little lonely. The wide lens starts to look like a superpower. So what do you actually do with this wiring? You stop apologizing for it and start designing a life that honors it without drifting into shallow dabbling. First, give yourself permission to sample deeply, not endlessly. Pick 3 or 4 domains that genuinely pull at you right now. Commit to them the way a polymath does, not forever, but for seasons long enough to feel their internal logic. Then deliberately look for the seams where they meet. That's where the magic compounds. A marketer who studies behavioral neuroscience doesn't just run better campaigns, she sees the hidden architecture of attention itself. A software engineer who paints doesn't just code prettier interfaces, she starts solving problems through composition and negative space. Second, protect your synthesis time the way specialists protect deep work. 1 quiet hour a week where you let ideas from different shelves talk to each other, no agenda, no output required. Your brain will do the rest. Neuroplasticity is on your side, every new connection you notice literally rewires the hardware. Third, reframe quitting as pruning. You're not failing to stick with things. You're harvesting what each season had to teach and moving on when the next lesson calls. The polymath's advantage isn't knowing more, it's knowing how things fit together in ways the single lens mind never considers. And here's the quiet philosophical truth at the center of all this. The universe doesn't come to us in neat academic departments. Reality is one vast, humming conversation across scales and domains. A true understanding of it, of life itself, requires more than mastery of one dialect. It asks for translators, pattern finders, people willing to stand at the intersections and listen. You were never meant to be just one thing. You were meant to become the living bridge between many things. In a world that keeps trying to hand you a single script, your restlessness is actually fidelity to a deeper calling that refuses to be reduced. So the next time that old guilt rises, when someone asks, "What do you do?" and your answer feels too long or too shifting, smile gently. You not behind. You early. The future doesn't belong to the person who knows the most about the narrowest slice. It belongs to the one who can still hear the whole orchestra. And you? You were born with the ears for it.